21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
In 2022, it was the back of having a lot of really good years. I had the most amount of liquid capital I ever had. Had a great work-life balance of working 15, 20 hours a week, making $7 million a year, 70% profit margin. Was about to have a kid, but I do have a kid now, but I was about to have a kid. And I've spent my life being really good at being a wizard. Is the best way I would put it. I don't really need to have a business strategy. I can make money out of thin air. I can kind of bend time and reality. Ever since I was a kid, I guess I always wanted to be a billionaire, and I always wanted to be quote unquote a king. And I learned that you can't be what you're not born to be. You can try, but you can't. It doesn't come as easy. So between 23 and 24, I lost $14 million, both my money and investors' money, trying to do something that, thankfully it was only 14 million. Could have been a lot worse. I got my kind of ass handed to me, and totally screwed up my work-life balance, totally screwed up my ability to have as much peace as I wanted. And for no other real reason that I wanted 100 million instead of 10 million. And my life's no different really from 10 million to 100 million. Plus, along with, having, let's call it $3.5 million in disposable income every year for doing almost nothing. So that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot, and it's been a very difficult time because, still paying back investors, still, getting sued by a couple of them. And then I got really sick after that. Which, it's kind of a kind of an of course moment, because I put my body and myself and my family and just in a situation we didn't need to be in. And so I got sick for about 5 months, which is when I built all these interesting AI things, because I was literally in a bed and couldn't do anything else besides talk to something. And then definitely built a level of motivation never to do that again, and then as well to be like, oh, you know what, I got a good idea of what I want to do, and it's not that shit anymore. And so in many ways, I think it hurt enough for me to give up and say, hey, universe, I'm done trying to be a king. I'm done with that shit. Let me do what I'm good at. And I'm really good at helping entrepreneurs. I'm really good at helping them scale companies. I'm really good at helping them. I'm great. I'm good at being able to get an entrepreneur. I think most people don't get an entrepreneur. But most people that are entrepreneurs don't feel seen and heard. And I feel very I can help that person feel seen and heard, because I've been an entrepreneur literally since I was a kid. 8 years old, made my first 20 grand selling eggs, and I never looked back. I've never had a job. So on and so forth. I had my first 7-figure business when I was 16, and so I'm 35, which I'm grateful for, because I'm still young enough to be able to not it be the end of the world. But it sucked. It sucked. It was lonely, depressing. Still paying for it. We'll still keep paying for it for a couple more years in reality. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. I grew up in Newfoundland, Canada, in this little town of 9,000 people. And so it was, I think that some entrepreneurs are created. I think some entrepreneurs are molded. And then I think some people just are born. That's what they are. And I think that was the third option. And I think part of that was because I have ADHD, AUDHD, lots of other things that make it so that living inside of a normal world isn't necessarily easy for me. But living inside of that entrepreneurial world was easy. And like, truth be told, I look, when I was 13, when I was 15 and running a marketing agency and a programming agency, and I had programmers around the world working for me. Like, I never saw it as a business. I just thought it was just fun, right? So I was like 16 years old, having a 7-figure business, and I start winning top 20 under 20 in Canada, and top entrepreneur of the year, and all these things. And to me, I'm just having fun, and it was like just an extension of what other people might play video games, or what other people might go hang out with friends. Like, that was my excitement. And so somewhere along that way, ego started coming into it. And at some point, it was not, hey, this is fun. It's like, hey, this is a business. And then I started getting focused on what I looked like, what the story was, how much team I had, look, my office, these types of things. And then I guess maybe fabricated this identity and this desire to be a billionaire someday. And so then I started pouring the money that I did make into a startup that probably wasn't really the right idea. That really wasn't who I was. My real essence of who I am is more, I wake up in the morning and what do I want to do? Not I wake up in the morning and I want to build $1 billion business for some reason. And so by the time I was 20, I lost all my money. I ended up $1 million in debt. I had to remortgage my parents' house due to taxes. And I didn't go bankrupt, but pretty much close. And then I had to sell the company that I built for $1, and as a liquidation sale for someone to take over some of the debt. And then I went and worked with them for a year, which was the worst year of my life probably, because I had to work for somebody. And so in all of that, it was my first real understanding, even though I didn't understand it at the time, but it was the difference between living my life from ego versus living my life from passion and desire and experience and fun and that. And unfortunately, I had to come back and learn that lesson a second time, even more deeply later on. But that was the first time of realizing, wow, like, I can have a lot of fun being an entrepreneur, but I can also build an absolute prison of an existence as an entrepreneur. And the only difference is ego. When you look at entrepreneurship, I think there's a lot of different types of entrepreneurs. And you have some entrepreneurs that are operators. You have some entrepreneurs that are the creative. For me, the word that resonates the most, and a mentor of mine said it to me one day, and it was the one moment where I felt most seen in my life, my whole life, out of anyone. And he said, it's divine madness who you are. It's absolutely, it doesn't make any sense who you are. It doesn't make any sense how you make things happen, but it's as if you have magic. And if you're in this specific environment, magic occurs, and you're able to bend time, and you're able to make it so that anybody says yes to you for almost anything. And none of it makes sense. You can't structure it. You can't recreate it. It's like lightning in a bottle. And, when I was younger, I ended up in the special needs class until I was in grade 11. Okay, so picture this. I'm making 7 figures a year, and I go to school, and I'm in the special needs class, okay, with the same people that are autistic, the same people that literally have no ability to live in their own world, live inside of this box that is school. And so I went all these years, and I had tests. My parents were very middle class. Being in, the household income in St. John's, Newfoundland's 27, or where I lived, not St. John's, Newfoundland, but was $27,000 a year. So very, very low income, not great schooling. There's not even any private schooling. There's only public schooling. And so for all of this, I lived most of my life until I'm 30, knowing that I have some memory problems, knowing I'm dyslexic, knowing that I have auditory processing deficit, but never being able to put the whole thing together. And so when I'm 30, my wife looks to me and she's like, yeah, I think that's just your ADHD. And I said, what do you mean ADHD? She said, well, you're clearly ADHD. Don't you know that? I'm like, no, I don't know. What do you mean? No one said that to me before. And so then, of course, I go through the grieving process of realizing you're ADHD, because that's a very normal process to go through. And I said, wow, like this is why I don't understand emotional cues. This is why I don't understand all these things. This is also why I live inside of reality distortion field, which is one of the greatest things that you could ever live inside of as an entrepreneur. This is also why I have such a hard time being around a lot of people. This is why I've excelled at having an online personal brand, because I don't have to talk to anybody. Like all of these things made me realize, but it also made me realize, I can't remember exactly the statistic. I have it in my book, Divine Madness, which is my book on ADHD. And in my case, I have a little bit of AUDHD. And so in all of that, about 1 in 4 entrepreneurs have ADHD, even though only 3% of people have ADHD. And now, of course, most of it's not diagnosed, because that's its own difficulty. And what I just simply realized is there's a version of business that everyone else talks about. And there's a version of life that everyone else talks about. And there's social norms. And there's all these things. And there's someone even having issues with ego or narcissism, or what may appear as narcissism, that actually is inside of ADHD, where we get hyper-focused on something. It's not the fact that we don't care or that we don't love. It's the fact that we're just hyper-focused, and we have tunnel vision. And this creates all this magic. And the problem is the people that we might be married to, our parents, our friends, our team, all of it just has no understanding of their reality versus what they see. And so it was like, I'm 35 right in this moment. And so for the last 5 years, I've gone super, super, super far down this road. Because the divorce rate, if one person's ADHD and one person isn't, 85%. You also look at the divorce rate of just entrepreneurs. If one person's entrepreneurial but is not, way higher, right? So add those things together. Just in my own life, wanting to have a great marriage and a great relationship, incredibly difficult. And if you don't know the name of it, you don't understand that it's normal, you don't understand why to do it. I remember when I was 23, I had no idea of this. Maybe 19, somewhere between 19 to early 20s. My entire team of 16 people, I walked into my office one day, my entire team resigned, and all I knew was the resignation letters on my desk. I had no idea anybody wasn't happy. And they went and started their own business. They weren't successful at that, but that was because I didn't know how to manage a team. I didn't know how to lead a team. I didn't know how to care for a team. I didn't know how to do any of that because of that deep, deep, deep ADHD, and of course, a little bit of immaturity when you're 19 years old. And so for me, it's allowed me to understand what I'm really, really good at and what I'm really, really not good at. And of course, we're living in this ADHD entrepreneurial utopia now, where AI can do all these things that we suck at. And if you know how to utilize AI the right way, it's as if having and being able to live in this superhuman bodysuit almost, where all the things that stop you as an entrepreneur, all the structural things, all the memory issues that you have, they all sort of go away. And now you can live like, quote unquote, a normal human being while also having the superpowers of being divinely mad for all intents and purposes. Starting in 2015, I'm like 24, 25 years old, but I have almost 15 years, close to 15 years running a business. seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. And also my brain just works in patterns in a really, really, really good way. And during this time, I also got really good at marketing, particularly. Really good at marketing, really good at sales. And so, I launched my first online business and personal brand business back in 2015. And someday, it was after me saying, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I don't want to do this agency thing anymore. I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be that. I don't want to live that life. And someone asked me, hey, can you teach me marketing? And of course, at the beginning, I said, I don't want to do that. And then I thought about it and I was like, let me try. I don't have a lot of money in the bank, so I got to do something. And so my first year, in the first 6 months, I did $500,000. The next year I did $3 million. And then, of course, it just kind of went from there. And of course, as I start teaching marketing and sales and ads and funnels and all these things, people start asking me, well, hey, can you help me on operations? Can you help me on delivery? Can you help me on those things? And so I become this, business influencer for online businesses for all these things: marketing, sales, operations, delivery, finance, mindset. Talk about that in my book, The Nuclear Effect, and which sold like 125,000 copies at this point. And in that book, I say, hey, this is all these things. And then as time goes on, I understand more and more deeply, yes, there's all this strategy, but the actual thing that's going to make it so that somebody really is able to scale their business, really able to be who they need to be is, number one, their mindset, number two, their nervous system, and number three, their identity. And those are the three most important things. Because if that person doesn't understand their mindset, isn't evolving their mindset, if that person doesn't understand what's going on with their nervous system, if that person doesn't see themselves as a different version of themselves that they're stepping into, they're not going to be able to be who they need to be able to lead that business. And I would say even the fourth, which is in my book, and yes, I know I have a few, and if you want to see all of them, you just go to scottoldford.com and they're all there, is levels of consciousness. And levels of consciousness, very simple, and I want to put it here because it's so simple and so easy, which is understanding what your level of consciousness is. Is it reactive, willful, intellectual, or intuitive? And through those levels of consciousness, doesn't matter if it's you're writing a sales page, managing a person, doesn't matter if it's having a conversation with your wife or husband. If you understand what level of consciousness you're coming from and they're coming from, you can build the translator in between those so that you can have this very, very, very easy way of going through the world almost with the cheat codes of how to have conversations with people and how to understand where they're coming from so that you're able to, whether it's motivate them or to allow them to see life through your identity and your reality. I was doing marketing for Audi. I was doing marketing for VW, for ski resorts, for the Canadian government, and it was brands. And I never ran marketing for a personal brand. I was my first understanding. I was my first a customer for that. And what I realized was all marketing comes down to three core letters. Doesn't matter if it's a personal brand, doesn't matter if it's a business brand. It comes down to relevancy, so that somebody understands that they need you, right? It creates that light bulb moment. Once they know that you're there and that you're relevant, they have to see you over and over again, generally 60 plus times, which is omnipresence. And then finally, if you want to create a scenario where you don't have to sell anything, which I'm Canadian, we're terrible at selling things. Most people are not that great at selling things. Americans are great, but for most of the world, it's not actually that great at selling. So if you want to skip the pitch, you have intimacy, which comes down to connection. So somebody feels you, feels seen and heard. It comes down to community. Hey, this is the flag I'm planting. This is the belief I have. And conversation, which is allowing someone to be able to actually have a human conversation, even in the time of AI, a human conversation, to be able to be in a place where someone feels seen and heard, they feel you're relevant, you become the inevitable choice. And when you do that, marketing is much, 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 much easier, much simpler. In 2025, as I got sick, I got really sick. I was in bed for about 5 months. And I built my business on me being there always. I built my business on my brain always being there. And so I built all these methodologies, all these frameworks. My mind just loves methodologies, love frameworks. I love being able to take something from my brain and be able to make it so that anybody can use it. And so in the past, it was always courses and programs and masterminds and things like that. And of course, I work with people one-on-one, but in this time of AI, I was able to, through those 5 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, build my brain in what I call logic boards, right? So when somebody goes and wants to utilize email marketing, instead of going and just, how do I do email marketing? Or how do I make it so that this works? I know I've literally made billions of dollars, not myself, but for my clients, through email marketing. Same thing for ads, same thing for funnels, same thing for mindset, same thing for all the different things. And so I essentially built these AI agents, these AI scaling agents, that doesn't matter what it is inside of your business that you need help with, even your mindset. You have the frameworks, you have the methodologies, but instead of me having you listen 20 hours on a course or read my 7-hour book, it just guides you through, hey, where are you right now? And it just guides you through with a wizard, piece by piece, step by step, step by step. And it allows you to go from having no email strategy to having a full email strategy, or a full business strategy, or full offer strategy, or whatever it might be, utilizing my taste, my judgment, my logic board, what has actually worked, helping hundreds of businesses scale properly. And making it so that instead of someone having to pay me, the $100,000 to $200,000 to work with me deeply one-on-one, they can get the same level of actual my brain, and it can scale far further. And coming back to me being sick, the reason I did that, there's most weeks when I was sick, I couldn't take a phone call. I'd throw up on the phone. The stimulation would literally make me throw up. So I literally couldn't make money for 5 months. And I was, after 23 and 24, after losing 14 million, I wasn't in a place to be able to not make money. And so I was like, well, universe, I know I probably would have never done this, because making the money today is a lot better than making the money tomorrow. But okay, I'm here and I'm going to do that. And so that's what I built with online business scaling agents, and all of my stuff being able to take it not just from here's a framework in my brain, but here it is for you, and anybody can use that. In my new book, Divine Madness, I talk about ADHD, and I talk about this wizard versus the king, this archetype of being the wizard versus the king, and realizing that I was the wizard since I was a kid. It's what I loved. It's what I enjoyed. I love entrepreneurship and the creation and building things. And if I let my ego into it, I start building a prison instead of this beautiful laboratory. Right? And what I've realized is all entrepreneurs have one or two patterns, core patterns, that are running the show. And I talk about this in my book, The Pattern. And if you understand your pattern, you understand how it is inside of marketing, right? If someone comes to me and they're a specific pattern, I know exactly what to do in their marketing, in their operations, in their mindset, and their finances, and all these things. And I've seen this with all the entrepreneurs that I've mentored. So you can get that at thepatternmindsetbook.com. And of course, as you can tell, I have books for all of the work. I have books for all of it. It doesn't matter if you're at 10K a month, doesn't matter if you're at $1 million a month, doesn't matter where you are in the journey. Really what my goal is, more than anything else, is to be able to make it so that entrepreneurs don't have to go through the pain that I've gone through. And they can go through a place where they understand, well, you know what? This is normal. Because when you're an entrepreneur, it can be really be hard. It can be really lonely. It can be really depressing to feel like nobody really gets it. And so I've built Doesn't matter if it's my AI agents, doesn't matter if it's my books, doesn't matter if it's my workshops. It's all on scottoldford.com. And my belief is, instead of me trying to get you to go to one single place, I know it's the worst in marketing 101, it tells you only to have one call to action. But my belief is, if you're here and you're listening to this and you go to scottoldford.com, I've done a good enough job being able to direct you to the exact thing that's going to be able to make it so that you feel seen and heard, that you feel like, wow, that was valuable. He gets me, he gets it, and your life's better, regardless if you ever pay me $1 or not. And that's really my belief is, regardless if you pay me $1 or not, I want to make it so that if you get an email from me, your life was better.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.